All right, and welcome back. Now we're bringing you your Betfred Super League Round 25 Playoffs Week 1 debrief. Well, after what it seems like 6 long months, we are finally at the business end of the Betfred Super League. But before we look at the final 6 teams in action over the next 2 weeks, we got to look back over all that Round 25 action involving a couple of qualifying matches for the top 6. And we start off with the Castleford Tigers going down to the Warrington Wolves, 40 points to 24.
I knew this one was going to happen for sure. It was just too predictable.
One word I could describe this game as, I could not believe what I saw at the Menderhose Jungle for Darryl Powell's final game. I'll tell you what that one word was. It was nuts.
It was to an extent.
Nuts.
It was to an extent.
What do you get? Warrington shootout to a 40, no, sorry, not 40, to a 26-0 lead at halftime. They are literally unstoppable at this point.
They certainly were. And
just no response. There was hardly a
No.
pulse in that Castleford side.
no, and the home fans are definitely very quiet indeed. And the look on Darryl Powell's face it said it all, really.
It's like he was thinking, what is this? This is not this side that I had humming nicely, almost ready to jump into the top 6. This is not that side.
No, they were far from their best, what they had been heading into a very critical match.
But then literally, as if it turned on a dime and a yellow card, I think, from Josh Charnley. It just went back the other way. Then it was Castleford running in 4 tries in about, 10 minutes?
Yeah. Well, there's a yellow card. That doesn't help.
Yeah, and I think they were down to 11 at one stage because I believe for Warrington there was a red card involved as well. So they were literally... Yeah, Josh Charnley first up with the yellow card, and then later on, Mike Cooper gets sent off.
Yeah, that was late in the match.
So then Warrington are down for a period. They're down to 11 men almost, and you're thinking, "Holy shit, the Tigers could pull off an upset here."
But it didn't happen.
Yeah, but fun fact, no.
Getting out to a 26-0 lead. Is pretty much what saved Warrington early on.
Yeah, and then finishing them off late. They got 32-0 at one stage, and that's in the first 50 minutes. Then the next half hour, they literally trying to fight off a Castleford fight back. Like it gets to 32-24, and from there, Warrington stabilize and then run in the last 2 or so tries, and they seal off the win. And with that, they seal off 3rd place.
Yes, which I think they pretty much already had locked in anyway.
They did, but they just needed that certainty of the victory so they could breathe.
Yes, which now they can.
I got to say, a lot of things impressed me about the Warrington Wolves. Firstly, no Darryl Clark, no Danny Walker, so you lost both your first choice dummy halves right there. So you turn to Stephen Ratchford, who apparently is a very versatile player, centre, 5'8", for standoff, off loose forward. You're just like, Steph, can you jump into dummy half? We got to play one of our youngsters is off at fullback in Matty Ashton, who's had a bit of game time over the last couple of years. And then Steph's like, sure, why not? And then sure enough, does a pretty good job at dummy half.
Yes.
And Matty Ashton in his place at fullback, 3 tries, 121 running meters and 3 tackle breaks.
Yeah, no, he had a brilliant game, Matty Ashton, for sure.
It was just unbelievable, those momentum swings. That could have been game of the round right there. First one off the race, sure, but it could have been game of the round.
Could have been. It was very close to it, though.
Yeah, it's just unfortunate Castleford didn't have enough tooth and claw in them, as I mentioned, and yesterday afternoon. And well, that really just brings Darryl Powell's tenure at Weldon Road to an end. And that very awkward conversation he's going to have in the preseason when he joins his future employers who just thrashed them in the final regular season game.
Yeah, it's going to be very, very
Oh, I wouldn't say
awkward
it's
to see.
awkward. It's professional
Well,
sport and it's a business. But even so, it would just be like just some of the players on day one under the 2022 preseason. It's just like, oh, boss, oh yeah, we denied you a final playoff opportunity with your hometown club, and Daryl's only like, well, you did, and now I'm going to lead you to the playoffs, and it's like, okay,
yeah,
a little bit awkward, but I think
it is, but it
they'll
is.
get over it fast. As for Castleford, they've got some, I wouldn't say searching to do, but I think with Lee Radford coming in, there'll be definitely a shuffle going on. I mean, Michael Shenton, Grant Millington already retired. Jesse Senni Lafayette said to be on the way out. Rumor is to be joining Salford. Jake Marmo coming in, so that's going to be even more awkward. Just like, oh yeah, we beat you guys as at the end of last season. Oliver Holmes, he's leaving for Warrington. Peter Matauti is leaving for Warrington. And Alex Sutcliffe confirmed to be joining Cass from Leeds, so that's always fun. Between the two Yorkshiremen, or the Yorkshire clubs. I don't know why I say Edmen first, but you get what I mean.
Yeah.
So
I
they got
want to jump in ship to Warrington.
a couple, the coach and two of their better players.
Yeah. Interesting how the tables can turn.
It definitely will. And I think Daryl Powell will be walking into a potentially leading Warrington to Old Trafford next year. I could very much see challenging Catalan and St. Helens for the grand final next year.
Oh, it's for sure. Who knows that Warrington could be there this year. Yes,
It's still on the table. It's still there. Right now, meanwhile, from the DW Stadium, speaking of teams bound for the playoffs, the Wigan Warriors got a confidence-boosting 12 points to 8 win over the Catalan Dragons.
Yeah, I think it was more of a second B team you could call Catalan side. I think I could be wrong, but it was a low-scoring game, which I did expect in a way, but not in another.
Some of the tries scored, I think I'm just thinking of Jackson Hastings' setup for Willie Isa, just that long-range grubber kick going in, and to bounce at the right time to take the Catalan edge defenders on the left out of position for Isa to go through.
Perfect timing. Absolutely perfect.
It was.
Timing.
It absolutely was. And then you had that mess from the Wigan defence, and that allowed Mathieu Laguerre to bag the second try for the Catalan Dragons.
Yeah, that was such a mess. I
lost
track of where it was
cannot afford to bomb on defence right on your own try line. You just can't afford to mess that up. Otherwise, you're going to get more tries looking through you like a sieve.
Yeah, exactly.
I would say this was a bit of a closer game. I think we're going to have been knocked about the last couple of weeks. It's low-scoring affairs that they've been on the wrong side of, strong defensive displays that they have put together. But the question is it going to be consistent enough to try and match it with the top sides in the playoffs?
Only time will tell. But yeah, it's just too hard to predict with Wigan all season long. It's been too hard. They've been hot and cold, very much so. And
as for Catalan, it was 2 tries all. If James Maloney nails those goals, scores are locked up at 12-all, we'd be talking golden point extra time, and whether or not Hardacre, Harry Smith, Jackson Hastings, or Maloney himself would be setting up the match-winning drop goal. Yeah, it would have been very interesting to see if it did go into golden point, and who would have come out on top, but it didn't, so we have to wait and see. One big concern for me, though, is I understand that Sam Tompkins went down injured in this game. Now, I don't know how long he's going to be out for, but this is a very big blow for the Catalan Dragons if it's anywhere between 3 and 5 weeks. And most certainly, he's been one of the key players all season long. Absolutely. He always is. Well, Tompkins has had a very strong comeback to the UK into stint at the New Zealand Warriors didn't work out, came back to Wigan, won another grand final, took on this interesting task at the Catalan Dragons. I think he had his best year in 2020 with them, and they've kicked on the bigger and better things this year with the League Leaders Shield. It's just a matter of actually delivering that first grand final win to the south of France.
Well, the rate that Catalans have been going, it's a very high chance that they can do that. And he has been instrumental of helping guide them to where they are.
They're a very strong chance, but if he's not there, well, maybe Archie Morg will step up to the plate. It'll be solid at the back, and James Maloney and Josh Drinkwater both run the show, either in their semi-final or whoever they might be facing, or in the grand final if it is against St. Helens.
Yes. Well, we know what Morg is capable of, as we've seen him a couple of times throughout the season.
Meanwhile, over in West Yorkshire, Wakefield had an absolute field day over Hull FC, running up 44-12 victors.
Yeah, Hull FC had a terrible game.
Shocking. It was absolutely shocking. Just like defense was Wakefield's strength in that game, and the attack just flowed on from there. Whether it was Mason Lino jinking in at the line, or it was the right edge of Hull FC did not have a good night, point blank.
No, they certainly didn't. And before Hull FC got their first try, they let in 34 points before scoring their first.
Not good. Absolutely not good. But I mean, once again, Jake Connor, that spark in the Hull FC attack, which was really, it was non-existent up to that point, to be quite fair.
No, it certainly wasn't. But
the most embarrassing moment for the black and white, so of course we're wearing their blue away kit, David Fafita, 3 Wakefield defenders around on the ball carrier, 2 of them fall off. Fafita comes up with the ball in a one-on-one strip, and they just stop. Hull's defense just stopped dead.
Yeah, they went nowhere. They didn't even
you
try.
You can't do that. You simply cannot allow yourself to stop, especially if you're allowing front rowers to get the one-on-one steal on you.
Exactly. Like, they didn't even attempt to try and turn around quick and try and stop him.
It's just like they didn't play to the whistle.
Not professional. No. And that's
simply did not play to the whistle.
And that's not professional. Well, a professional sport, but that is not showing enough enthusiasm.
It's shocking.
Professionalism. Yeah.
And given that Hull FC were in a position 5 weeks out, they were inside the top 6. Leeds and Castleford were both fighting them and Hull KR to get into the top 6. They were comfortable in 5th. And then a 5-game losing run destroys them.
Yeah.
Destroyed. After all that good work, and we talked earlier in the year, defense was Hull FC's strong point after conceding 2 tries against Huddersfield in the first game, and then only conceding 1 try against Salford. Of course, they had a bit of a hiccup to the draw against Warrington, and Wigan and Saints, Catalan all belted them around at various stages. But then it just got embarrassing. Losses to Huddersfield, losses to Salford. I don't think they lost to Leeds, did they? At all?
I don't think so.
Well, it would have been embarrassing if they actually did, and we just omitted the fact because we didn't know it at the time. As for Wakefield, I think since Willie Poaching's taken over, it's like they've relaxed and really enjoyed the football they've been playing.
Maybe it's his coaching style that has got Wakefield running on a consistent run and he might allow them to, be a bit more free-flowing, if you know what I mean. Like, giving them that extra confidence of playing, like showing the ball around and passing where not many people would normally pass and the likes. just been full of confidence.
Well, they were definitely free flowing in that game. I mean, we had about 6 or 7 tries. Wakefield scored all up to Hull FC's 2. I would
Yeah.
say that's pretty free flowing.
Yeah, it certainly was.
And
And even like,
there is a good basis they can use to start again fresh next year. I mean, of course, Alex Walker's not going to be there. The juggling of Hampshire, Jacob Miller. I think just on Jacob Miller, because there was all these rumors that he was going to join the Wigan Warriors as a scrum half. Mike Carter's put those rumors to bed. I think that's good for Trinity, that their captain will be sticking around for a little while longer, at least until his contract runs out. Of course, Mason Lino had I wouldn't say he's had a good season. I'd say reasonable given the circumstances he signed on for.
yeah, he certainly did. And it's good to see that their captain is sticking around. He's been in pretty much everything this season. And to have that consistency going into the new season next year is also another good thing. And with Lino, like you said, he's been hot and cold a little bit. Like you said, didn't have a brilliant season, but it was a fairly good season for him.
They were actually chanting his name as he was sin binned. It's the chants of Lino were going around the grounds.
Yes, I did hear that. It just shows that you could say, become a fan favourite.
Yes, well, speaking of fan and favourites, before we talk about Conrad Hurrell, we got to talk about Salford getting one up over St Helens, 26-14.
Now, I could not believe this result, but trust me.
You got to keep in mind, St Helens had about 4 debutants on debut, and most of the first team stuff resting up for their semi-final showdown.
Yeah, true, but I still thought they would have gone on with the job, though. Like, Salford came so close against Warrington in round 24, but lost. And they've come out and beaten another top 3 side.
Top two. Saints are second on the table.
Yeah, well, from Warrington last week, from the week before, nearly beaten them. They're in 3rd. And then Saints. So, yeah, top 3. It's a good way to finish off the season.
It definitely was. The try it right on half-time turned everything. Saints were only up 14-10 at half-time. They were in a fight. They were in front. And then Salford just turned it on in the second half. And I got to say, for all the criticism that we've lobbed at Tuilola here, well, probably I more than you.
Yeah.
Despite only running for 50 metres, 3 try assists, including that banger of a setup for Ken Seo on the Salford right flank, 5 tackle breaks, and 2 offloads.
Yeah. Now, he has been one of the better. How am I supposed to word this without saying that the rest of the team's not good? He's been one of the, the more
maligned, perhaps?
Yeah, you could say that. He's been organising kind of the ruck and the team a lot this season, I believe. One of a few players I have. And he's stepped up when he has had to.
I'll tell you what Salford did well. The second phase, it's from every offload, there was a support runner. They kept the ball alive and they troubled St Helens defensively. And by extension, the 4 debutants in the St Helens side, they challenged defensively. I think that's what they've done extremely well. I mean, you look at most of the tries that weren't set up by kicks, that were set up by second phase.
Yeah, which is good. It's what teams need. Like, if you break through the line, you need to have support. Otherwise, it's going to get tackled and risk of not scoring a try or getting points.
Believe me, Salford are going to get better players coming in. I mean, already they've signed Brodie Croft, which some people have actually found rather laughable and reading through comments on, say, Facebook or Twitter, that they've found it laughable. Brian Briley signing up from the Leeds Centurions. Interesting, yes. But what they do with Morgan Escare, I suppose I am not the Salford head coach, because that is certainly not Richard Marshall. We'll touch on that very shortly. King Vuniyayawa also joining from Leeds, and they've also Lined up. Oh no, the speculation is they're going to sign Jesse Seni Lefeo up, but the one man that won't be there is Richard Marshall.
Yeah, that's come a bit of a surprise, in all honesty. Like, I know something that Paul
Terrible.
ish.
It
Well,
was
not
terrible.
as terrible, not as terrible as other teams, but it's kind of come as a
What
very
other
big
teams?
surprise.
Mark.
Centurions.
Nearly every single side that is not the Leeds Centurions finished above you. You were only
Okay.
lucky to finish above League. And
Okay.
believe me, they only had about 3 wins all year, or 2 wins.
Yeah, okay.
And
But
I think
yeah,
now go on.
yeah, so it's a bit of a surprise, really. I didn't see this one coming.
Yeah, well, that's sort of the way it goes. Coaching is a brutal business, despite his best efforts with Halifax over the last couple of years, keeping them in and around the qualifiers and, of course, the top 5 playoff of series. It just simply wasn't enough, and it probably pressure. It is pressure can get to a man, and who's literally taking on a role at one of the worst Super League clubs, or worst performing, I should say.
Yeah. And that certainly is the case for season 2021.
There'll be the questions thrown around. I think already they've suggested maybe Brian McDermott might come up from Oldham to take on the job. Chris Chester might find a home at Salford after the flick at Wakefield. Actually, 2 ex-London Broncos coaches have both been linked to the Salford head job. Danny Ward and Andrew Henderson have both been linked. I think that's all the names I can remember of the 6. And I've named probably about 4 of them. Just can't remember the other 2 off my head.
Steve Price maybe be
No,
in there?
Steve Price has already signed up with the Sharks as their assistant coach for 2022.
Yeah. Well, there you go.
But I would say that for the Salford squad, with minus Marshall, I think they can take a lot of confidence out of this. But you've got to keep in mind, there's probably 2 or 3 sides around that at 7th to 10th position that are looking to make that jump into the top 6. I think your Holloseas, your Casper Tigers, and maybe your Huddersfield Giants.
Yeah.
And are looking to make that jump at the expense of someone currently in the top 6. And at the moment, I'm somewhat struggling to think who might drop at the moment. But you never know.
Yeah.
That's the magic of prediction. You never know what you're going to end up with.
No, you certainly don't. And that's the beauty of predicting as well.
Speaking of Conrad Hurrell, he only had a small cameo at Emerald Headingley in his last regular game for the Leeds Rhinos before the word is supposedly joining St Helens on a 3-year deal. But Leeds running out 36-12 winners over Hull KR. It really was, I wouldn't say there was any pressure riding on this game.
No, not really.
Put it this way, if Castleford had forced the upset over Warrington, then there is everything to play for in this game that went down at Emerald Headingley. The final fight for 6th on the ladder between Leeds and Hull KR. But instead, it became a game of, okay, we're locked away. We're nice and safe inside the top 6. The question is, who wants to go and play Warrington at the Halliwell Jones Stadium, given how well they've been playing? Yeah, and I think the answer, it turned out Hull KR decided they want to face the Warrington Wolves at the Halliwell Jones Stadium.
Yeah. Leeds were just in control pretty much from the first whistle right through to the end.
It was a dominant display from the Leeds Rhinos at home. The last regular game came at home for them, and they didn't fail to disappoint.
No, they certainly didn't. And that's the beauty. That's what the home fans wanted to see, a victory in the last game of the regular season and to confirm their spot in the playoffs.
Well, I think Leeds are the real winners out of this. Not just because their defence was a standout and that they were running in 6 tries to 2 over the Robins, But now they don't have to play the Warrington Wolves until probably maybe the grand final if they're lucky.
If they're lucky, it's a big if there, but
It
like
is a
I
big
said
if.
earlier,
It is
never
a
know.
big if. And I mean, you had Cruz leaving and Richie Myler once again stand up before Ormers for this Leeds Rhinos side in the absence of Jack Walker and in absence of Luke Gale. Once again, and of course, Robert Louis chimed in his little bit. Ash Handley, just a freak of a try scorer, really worthy of the man he succeeded, and that was, of course, Ryan Hall, who was ultimately, you could understand, frustrated that he couldn't take part in this clash at home. How poetic would it have been for Ryan Hall to have been fit for this game and take the field at Emerald Headingley wearing the red and white of the Robins?
I don't think you would have got
a favorite son come home and one of their great ever try scorers.
Yeah, it's unfortunate that he couldn't get the play, but sometimes things don't go quite the plan, and you never know. Hopefully, he comes back and plays there again next season.
I think he will do it again, and I think it'll be very interesting to see where Hull KR go from here, because I see it as this is the first time in the Super League era, I think, well, especially in the last 5 years, that they have actually made the Betfred Super League playoffs and I think this is a great reward for Tony Smith, if personally, after Tim Sheen's, because you think of it this way, 2016, they lost the £1 million game to Salford and had to drop down to the Championship. You get Tim Sheen's come in and he lists them out of the Championship, finishing top 3 in the qualifiers, gets them back into Super League after 1 year out, keeps them in Super League after forced to go into the qualifiers again, and then twice before getting sacked and transitioning to Tony Smith, keeps them out of the relegation drop zone in 2019, unfortunate to finish wooden spooners in 2020, and then to turn it around to finish 6th in the table in 5 years. That is a remarkable turnaround, and that is a great reward for the people of East Hull.
Most certainly has been. Like, they've gone from being not they've been a reasonable side, but they have over the last 5 years, it's turned out to be really they're getting better, you could say, as the years go on.
Well, not better. They're still poor performances, but this has been their best year of those 5, the best year by far.
Yeah.
And I think there was a lot of promise around Hull College Craven Park. It's just unfortunate that they got steamrolled by really a playoff specialist in the Leeds Rhinos on their day.
Yeah. And once you get into a mood, it's hard to stop the other team. And this is certainly what happened here. Leeds got into their
the groove.
The groove. And
not to mention they had, if it's sort of an unfair advantage, they had the South Stand behind them. I mean, the band playing, the crowd was sold out. Honestly, if I ever get to the UK, bucket list or a pilgrimage, even if it's for the World Cup, I would love to watch a game at Emerald Headingley.
Oh, so would I.
I'd love it. Look, that atmosphere, that's brilliant, that atmosphere. I would love to be there amongst all those Leeds Rhino supporters, even if I was barracking for St. Helens.
Yeah. Even if you're going for the opposite team.
Hey, as long as I'm not wearing a Bradford or Castleford shirt, I think I'd be all right. Because I don't like Bradford and I don't like Cass. I think I'd be all right.
Yeah, fair enough.
And finally, one of British Rugby League's saddest stories of the 2021 season, the Leeds Centurions finally met their end, bowing out of the Betfred Super League for the second time in 4 years after a 42-24 defeat at the hand of the Huddersfield Giants.
Well, I have to say, 42-24 is not the scoreline I was expecting, to be quite frank with you.
Yeah, you're right. I was actually expecting 70-18 or something like that.
I wasn't expecting that much, but I wasn't expecting Leeds to get that many points on the board either.
Nah, but once again, Lee, despite their competitiveness and some of the recent recruits and Sam Stone and Jai Whitbread adding their names to the try score or a sheet, or being involved in the attack of the Lee Centurions, it just came a little too late for Kurt Haggerty, especially after, of course, we talked about the sacking of John Duffy, the pressure Lee were under, and just the overall quality of the side compared to the other 11.
Yeah, they've had a very, very poor, terrible, whatever you want to call it, season. But there have been some shining lights. They did get 2 victories, which is better than going through the season without a win. So they can look.
That is true. And they did manage to win their final home game of the year, despite all the odds.
Yes, that's also very true.
As for the Huddersfield Giants, well, they were outstanding. I will say that. Huddersfield played very well. The try, Oliver Russell, for me, he was instrumental in this performance. Despite only running for 47 meters, scored a try, set up 4 tries, 2 of them being crazy tries. First, the crossfield kick, and then the jump and spin from Leroy Cudjoe to bag his try. And then pocket rocket Will Price coming on, just bang, gone. You couldn't catch him.
No, you couldn't. Once he's into space, it's goodbye.
It was just, I don't know if there was probably a Lee player in Cooee of catching Will Price. But Oliver Russell in the halves, and I know he's going to be competing not just with Jack Cogger, not just with Price, but he's going to be competing with Tuilola here. After several weeks of speculation, he finally has signed on the dotted line for Ian Watson's son on a 2-year deal at the John Smith Stadium. So either competed standoff or transition to scrum half to try and earn your place in the side for next year, as well as the 5 from 7 goals he ended up converting. But the way Lee were conceding tries, not just the kicks that were setting up tries for the centers like Cudjoe and Ricky Latelli, or the tries they were conceding under the sticks from Price and Joe Greenwood from close range. That one was just embarrassing.
Yes, it certainly was. Like you have to try and stop someone like Greenwood close to the line.
And it did get fiery at the back end. Nathaniel Pesaru not happy with something there. Of course, lost the ball in Lee's defense and decided to lash out with his boot. No doubt that he will be dining out with the match review committee. He worthy of suspension for the 2022 season, the start of it at least.
Yeah, for the start of it, you just don't do that.
How many games? How many games do you reckon he would get for that?
3 or 4.
Wow, 3 or 4.
It is some things like that can be quite severe, depending on the severity of it. So at worst case, 4 weeks, at least 2.
I haven't thought of it that way.
Because because it's the studs of the boots. So if you lash out, you could severely injure. You could severely injure a player.
Well, you definitely could do that, and it would not be the most pleasant of experiences.
No, because the spikes on the boots aren't that blunt. They can be quite sharp.
Yeah, they definitely can, and it would not be pleasant whatsoever.
No.
Now, last week we decided to highlight 2 key matches in the Betfred Championship on who would join the top six and play off for a spot in the Betfred Super League next year, now knowing that Lee have been relegated. The 2 key matchups we highlighted was Bradford against Whitehaven and York versus London. Well, it was basically over within the first game of the weekend. Whitehaven scoring a 36-22 victory over the Bulls at Oddsall, while York down the London Broncos 32-22 at the LNER Community Stadium. And of course, the runaway contenders of the championship, Toulouse Olympique, we didn't touch on this last week, but yet another ridiculous score line. Downing the Newcastle Thunder 82-12.
Unbelievable. When was the last time you saw a team rack up more than...
Well, Toulouse has been one of the 82-12. Well, Toulouse have been the standout side all year. I mean, despite the fact that they have only played probably half as many games in the championship as their nearest rivals, because one, the part-time sides did not travel to the south of France, and there have been, and of course, disruptions as usual. But for 14 straight wins and for and against of 698 to 124, which, if I run it through looking for their differential, that's a differential of 574.
That is unbelievable.
In less than 15 games, because you're more than likely you'd need at least probably a 70 or 75% pass mark of games played at least to qualify for the top 6. And I would say 14 is enough of judging, because we don't know what the RFL have laid out for the championship, but I think from memory, 60 to 70% of their game and out of the possible 22 rounds. So I think many would find it Toulouse a bit iffy, but hey, they qualified first, so I don't think there's really any questions about it.
No, there shouldn't be anyway.
Now, we'll touch back on the championship shortly, because right now we are in for the Betfred Super League playoffs, and we start off with the 3rd v 6th elimination final between the Warrington Wolves and Hull KR. Well, dearie me. I hope Warrington aren't hoping there's a case of deja vu in this first elimination final right here, because the last time they bowed out from 3rd on the table was last year against Hull FC from a similar position.
Wow.
This is a similar situation that they've got to play 2 Hull sides in back-to-back playoffs appearances.
Yeah. It's going to be... Well, I can play 2 Hull clubs, one in each year, in similar positions as well. That's a bit of deja vu to an extent.
But I think there is a huge difference this time round, and we have actually jumped ahead a little bit, but we'll still talk Warrington and Hull KR, because they are we'll start with the highest ranked side first, but even though they are technically the second game of the playoffs campaign for this weekend. But actually, we'll double check on who's in and who's out of the Warrington Wolves side. And the good news for Warrington, Darryl Clark is back in the lineup, and Danny Walker. So I would expect, depending who's in and who's out, Clark will start, Walker off the bench, Ratchford will move back to fullback, and then I would probably more than likely see Matty Ashton fighting for a place in the back line alongside Cott on a wrench, as it seems though Toby King has not been named for the side, although he would have to get up over the top of Tom Lyon. No, my apologies. King has been, in fact, named. So this will be, unfortunately, Matty Ashton, hat-trick hero, will more than likely drop out. Ratchford the fullback, Clark at dummy half, Darryl Clark, because Jason Clark's on the side as well, and Danny Walker off the bench. Toby King that forced Connor Wrench out of the side. And it's essentially what we have is a full-strength Warrington Wolves side plus George Williams.
Where are they going to play Blake Austin? That's what I would like to know.
Oh, he'll come off the bench.
Yeah, fair enough. But how long into the match, or where are they going to play him? Who are they going to bring off when he comes on? He could be used as a third half or as a utility. I just don't know. But I
think he will actually struggle to be the utility in this game with Danny Walker's return, because now that Steve Price, I was going to say Darryl Powell. Now, Steve Price will have his preferred 2-hooker solution back, both with Clark and Walker, and I think this stiffens up the Warrington in middle significantly against this big Hull KR pack that they're working with.
Yeah. But whenever Blake Austin comes on the field, he'll bring an extra kicking game onto the field if Steve Price doesn't bring off Widdop or Williams. If he keeps them two out there, he'll just be basically like an extra half out in the field.
For me, if Warrington are to advance to the semi-final, more than likely we'll have to travel to the south of France and to face the Catalan Dragons. I'm looking at this whole KR pack. Corbin Sims is named, Albert Vete named, of course, Brad Takarangi, Kane Lynette, at George King, underrated, as is Lewis Johnson. I would be looking at Brad Takarangi and think he is the danger man for the Robins.
Yeah, completely agree with you right there. We know what he's capable of, and you could say he's also one that could turn the game around on its head.
For me, he is the X factor. And if Jordan Abdul's fully fit, I expect a very strong a contest between Williams and Jordan Abdul to find who will be the dominant half that decides their semi-final fate.
Yeah, it's going to be very hard to pick who's going to be taking, you could say, basically control the match out of those two players. We're just going to see how they are going in the match early on, and they'll decide from there, really.
Oh, we will. We absolutely will. But at the end of the day, Warrington are full strength. Their left edge has been stiffened by the return of Tom Lynham and Toby King. Darryl Clark and Danny Walker are back. So expect a crisp passing and darting out of dummy half. So they'll be looking to take the Robins on through the middle of the field, and adding in George Williams' experience at this time of the season, and which has been a blessing for the Warrington Wolves. I can see no other way, but I see Warrington running out 13 plus winners over the Robins. I think at home, Warrington full all strength, and George Williams looking to impress us in the playoffs, which is exactly why they bought him. I think this is setting up perfectly for Steve Price's farewell.
Yeah, I completely agree. When I saw this matchup, I thought Warrington are going to win this one 13 plus. It's going to be like whole KO, they'll be in the contest, but for how long, I'm not quite sure, but Warrington will absolutely run away with it.
So you're going Warrington as well?
Yeah, Warrington 13 plus.
All right. So it's the Warrington Wolves we predict will more than likely face the Catalan Dragons in the semi-finals. Now we'll look back to the 4v5 elimination final, and your first game this weekend, actually, by the time we're recording this at 10 o'clock Australian Eastern Standard Time, it'll be on at about, what would you say, about 8 hours?
Something along those lines, yes, not too far away.
4:45 a.m. kickoff, I think, by our time. Of course, we'll be in bed for that, but we will watch the game later in the morning, and just so we can bring this content to you.
Will be in the afternoon for me, but anyway.
Yes, but regardless, the Wigan Warriors will be hosting the Leeds Rhinos at the DW Stadium, and Wigan will be bolstered by the return of John Bateman. More than likely, he was rested for this game. Tony Clubb has been included in the 21-man squad. Whether or not he will play, considering he has announced his retirement, and Adrian Lamb will more than likely be looking towards the future. As for Leeds, Mikolaj Oledzki's back, so that is definitely good news. Who's right there? Unfortunately for the Rhinos, still no Luke Gale. I got to say, the Warrington OKR game for me was easy to predict, but Wigan and Leeds, I'm actually finding it a little bit harder.
Well, it's harder to predict because we don't know what Wigan side we're going to get. We're going to get Are
we going to get the league leader Wigan Warriors from last year and the first 4 rounds of this year, or are we going to get a Wigan Warriors that has been
inconsistent?
Yeah, inconsistent, but still good enough to be in the playoffs.
Yeah, so that's why it's such a hard one to pick, because you don't know what you're going to get.
Their win-loss record, both of them are coming in on similar win-loss records over the last 6 games. Both of them coming off a 3-3 well, actually, Leeds coming off a better win-loss record, but similar enough if you look at it through the last 5, 2 wins and 3 losses, or 3 wins, 2 losses. Actually, I'll muddle up. Too many numbers. Also, 10 o'clock at night by the time we're sitting down and doing this.
Yes.
Not having Luke Gale there this time for Leeds, that would be the big question for me. We've seen them perform well against fellow top 6 contenders, but we've also seen them get steamrolled by others.
Yeah, they've played with Luke Gale without Luke Gale for what, a fair chunk of the season, you could say.
Oh, I would definitely say fair chunk.
So
On and off.
They are capable of winning without him.
They have demonstrated that, and Cruz Leeming and Robert Louis. The inconsistency of the Leeds Rhinos halves pairing is what sort of sets me off. I mean, they showed up, I think, in the last game against Hull KR, just the number of standoffs and scrum halves they have gone through this year alone, so to speak.
Yeah. It's a bit higher than what also they'll be aiming for, but I think they might have somewhat settled on for the combination for the rest of the season, which is what we seen last week and
yes,
the week prior.
Exactly, sir. Wigan, meanwhile, I think they're still worthy contenders at this stage of the season. I don't think Adrian Lamb's looking for a backward step, but he desperately needs a result because he has literally had probably a year from hell after the big heights of performing at the KCOM Stadium for the grand final. Just the luck at the bounce of the ricochet drop goal. Oh, but you're right about Leeds. They have settled on Robert Louis and Richie Myler for this game, whilst Jack Broadbent more than likely will be given another shot at full back.
Yeah. Yeah, it just comes down, I believe, this comes down to see what Wigan side we get. Like I said, do we get the Wigan of last year or do we get the inconsistent Wigan of this year?
Well, that is the question. But at the end of the day, one of these sides will have to go off and face the reigning champion St. Helens in the semi-final.
Yes.
And that will be a very big ask, regardless of who makes it through.
Yeah, I'm actually leaning towards Leeds. To be quite frank, I know like they've been fairly on. Well, the win-loss record, like you said, is like it's slightly favouring Leeds. But I still think Leeds are gonna win. I'm gonna say 13 plus as well. I think we're gonna get it.
Wow, you're calling for a big scoreline there.
Not too big, but in a 13 plus bracket, I think we're gonna get the inconsistent Wigan side.
Gonna get the inconsistent Wigan side?
Yeah.
Okay.
That's what I reckon.
Look, I think despite the Wigan Warriors' inconsistency, some of their recent wins have demonstrated, especially against the Catalan Dragons, that defensive resolve that they have in there. I think they beat Leeds in their last meeting at the DW Stadium, where I believe it. Oh no, that was the 14-0 in favour of Leeds. Never mind. But the 22-0 nilling of Castleford at the Jungle, as well as their 12-8 win over the Catalan Dragons, coupled with the 10-0 win over Hollow-Sea, I still think there is a lot of defensive resolve in the Cherry and What at this stage. And there are lots of big game players, whether it's Zach Hardacre, Jackson Hastings, or John Bateman. Those three will know exactly what to expect going to this. I don't think there is a good core of the Wigan senior in your playing group that will be there to just nudge the youngsters like Harry Smith, your Shorroxes, your Kai Pearce-Pauls into that direction to step it up. This is the different breed of football you've played, and you've played all year. I'm going to call Wigan winning 1-12 here. I think home field advantage, that core nucleus of playoffs experience right there that will be ready to guide Wigan into a semi-final showdown against the reigning champions.
Yeah, fair enough. We'll just have to, like I said, it only comes down to see what Wigan side we get. Inconsistent or last year.
Well, we only have to wait about 8 hours to find out. Finally,
yes.
we're just going to do a very quick quickfire tip. It's because we really have not been covering the Betfred Championship all year, just casual observation to find who will make the top 6. And we do have the elimination finals for the championship locked up. In the first game, it will be the Batley Bulldogs hosting the Bradford Bulls, of course. Bradford, former 3-time Super League champions, and could potentially be just a couple of hours away from returning to the Betfred Super League after 8 long years. But they have to be at the Fox Biscuit Stadium to come up against the third place Batley. They're doing it nicely behind Toulouse and Featherstone. Or I might have got that wrong. No, sorry, 4th v 5th. I've done it again. But nevertheless, as tied with tied with Halifax for third. So they've been, I would definitely think points percentage, not in the Bulldogs' favour, but they have definitely performed well to be amongst the contenders for the Super League berth on offer.
Yeah.
Who are you going to back?
Bradford or Batley? I'm going to say Bradford.
Going with the Bulls?
Yeah, probably 1 to 12 margin.
I agree with you. I think Bradford, despite the challenges the Bulls have faced, I remember a couple of players from the last time I actually saw the Bulls play live, including, I believe, Danny Brough, Jordan Lilly, David Foggin-Johnston, amongst others. I would back the Bulls 1 to 12 here. And in the third v6 eliminator, more than likely, we'll have to travel to face Toulouse Olympique in the south of France. The rebranded Halifax Panthers against Whitehaven RLFC. Quick tip here at the Shea.
I think I tipped Whitehaven last week. I think they beat the Bulls, and that did happen. So I'm going to continue on with.
You're going to double down on Whitehaven, all right?
Yep.
I'm going to swing the other way. I'm going to go for the much stronger and the more qualifier S playoff experienced Halifax 13 plus.
Oh yeah, forgot margin. 1 to 12 for Whitehaven.
All right. Well, that is full time from us. Very late in the evening in the land down under. If you liked either this debrief or the NRL debrief we put up yesterday, make sure you leave a like, subscribe, turn on the notifications bell so you never miss a week of rugby league action. Hope you enjoy all the playoffs and the preliminary finals right here, because I tell you what, there is going to be some big talking points coming out of all the action across the weekend, from grand final qualifiers in the NRL to Super League playoffs, to find who will be 80 minutes away from a grand final berth, and for the championship sides, who will be 80 minutes away from £1 million game berth for a Super League spot. Along with Mark Hendry, I am Connor Marcellus, and you have been listening to the Sideline Chat podcast. We'll see you next week. God, we've really got to figure out what we're going to do next. But nevertheless, we will deliver you some content in the off season. And see you next Wednesday.
See us.